In this video, we're going to make sure that Unity is speaking properly to Visual Studio Code. We're going to write our first little script, just something silly, to debug log to the console. This is the console, and we're just going to print out a little statement down there. So let's jump in and get started. First step in this process is for us to make a C# script. So we head down into our assets directory. I'm going to right-click, create, and creating a C# script. Now, before you click C# script, wait on a moment. Once you click on this, don't click anywhere else in your screen. Just rename the file immediately as I do. So just watch what I'm doing here before you click anywhere. So I'm going to create the script, and I'm going to type straight away. I will type print to console will be the name of my script. So print to console, and the convention with naming of scripts is to have camel case. So we have capital P, capital T, capital C. And just because I know some people get stuck on this, I'm just going to very quickly show you what happens if you do click away. So don't follow this, but I just want to show you. If you right-click, create C# script, and you can see here we're highlighted already. If I was to click away, it's going to bake in the name of the script as, new behavior script. You can see down the bottom here, new behavior script. And that's going to cause issues if I then go and rename it to something else. For example, you can see that something else has a conflict within the script over here, the public class. We're going to talk about classes in the next couple of sections. Public class is still new behavior script. So that's a little bit deep and a little bit stuff we don't need to get into technically just yet. But I want to point out that if you do have an issue where your game is saying, I don't know what's going on, you've got a conflict. And when you click on your script, you see a conflict between the names. So the name is not the same as what comes after public class. It's different there. Then just delete your script and go through that process again in creating it. So the print to console, if I click on that, you can see our information over on the right-hand side. It says print to console. Good, so I know it's going to work. Now let's make sure that Unity knows what should open up when we double-click on that script. So I'm going to head up to Edit in the top left, find Preferences, and within Preferences, I need to click on External Tools. External tools, it should be the top note here, external script editor. For me, I'm using Visual Studio Code, and again, the reason I'm using that is because it looks pretty much the same on Mac and PC, so that all of our students can follow along the same. It's totally fine if you use Visual Studio Community. It'll be a little bit different to what I'm doing, but it's still going to get you where you need to get you. So make sure whatever IDE or editor you're using is the one that's selected in the external script editor. So Visual Studio Code for me. So that's all good. Now when I go and double click on my script that I've created, it will open up my editor. I'm just going to rearrange myself a little bit differently here. If you think that your font is too big or too small, you can Control plus or Control minus. I'm trying to get mine to the size that it's good for you to read. That's a little bit too big. Now the first thing we need to do is to make sure that our Visual Studio Code knows that we're working in Unity and C#. So you can see some buttons over on the side here. I'm going to find the extensions, click on extensions, and that will allow me to add particular things. Now, I've already got a couple enabled from a previous installation that I've done here. The first one is C#. So if I click on that, you can see exactly the one that I'm using. For you, if you don't have this, you can go into the search and type in C#. And look for the one that looks the same as mine. There's a few options. Let me just open up a little bit here. There we go. Basically, this is bringing in standard code and standard rules and standard information about how C# should work. So click on that one and then go ahead and install. I've already installed it, so mine doesn't have that option, but install that. After you've done that, we need to install our Unity extension. So type in Unity, and for me, I'm using Unity Code Snippets. If we click on that, once again, I've just got uninstall, but for you, you can go ahead and install that. Now, these change from time to time. They're going to be updated. Some will go out of date. New ones will come along. So long as you're using something that gets the job done, it doesn't really matter which one. So if you don't see the ones that I'm using because it's off in the future and something's changed that I don't know about, then you can just Google what is the best Unity code snippets for Visual Studio Code, and likewise what's the best C# extension for Visual Studio Code, and it will give you all the information you need. Now we can close this one up, and we've got print to console. I can click on my extensions to just make our screen all about the code. Let me rearrange it a little bit here so it's only taking up the amount of space it needs to. There we go. Now, if this is your very first time seeing a script within Unity, it might all look a little bit confusing. It'll become clearer as we go throughout this course. I want you to trust me for the moment, and we're not going to get bogged down in all of the details. The one thing I'll point out now is that we can see here void start. This is a function that will run, so it'll make things happen when this script comes to life. So for us, what we're going to be doing, it'll be when we start playing the game. I'll click on the play button. So we're going to put a statement within this start function here. Like I say, we'll talk about functions, we'll talk about using, we'll talk about classes, we'll get to all those things, but for now we just want to make sure that Unity and Visual Studio Code are working properly together. So follow along with me here. I'm going to type in debug with a capital D dot log, debug.log, open parentheses, and you can see that because we're in our IDE, it's automatically said, well, I think you're going to want to close the parentheses at the end, so let's pop that in there. We're going to put in quotation marks. So for me, that's the key right next to enter, so shift and then quotation marks. There we go. And once again, it puts in the close quotation marks, being a clever sausage that it is. And I'm going to type in here whatever I want to have print out when the game starts. And here I'll just type in, I'm printing to the console. Just something silly. And then at the end of our statement, so what we've written just in here is a statement, I need to put in a semicolon. All of our statements end in a semicolon in C#. Okay, like I've said, don't worry if this is a little bit confusing for now. We're just making sure everything works, and we'll absolutely explain it all. What we need to do before anything will work properly is to save. You can see up here I've got a dot next to my print to console.cs. I will save. And now it just looks like an X mark. So save will just Control S as we save anything. Now I will jump back over into Unity. The critical thing to do with our script, just having some information on our script isn't enough. We need to have that script attached to a game object so that when our scene runs, the script is triggered. The script is called, and Unity says, do this stuff. So I'm going to find one of my cars, just car number 1, I think it is. And you can see car number 1 has just the transform on it for now. If we open up the parent, we can see all the different visual aspects underneath our car. But for now, we're going to click on car, and I will drag my print to console over until I see the big blue line on car. Boom, there we go. That script has now been attached as a component to my car. And because I attached it to just an instance, I didn't go and modify the prefab, so I didn't do anything to this prefab here. It's just attached to this one car instance. I could have also clicked on Add Component and searched for Print to Console and added it that way. But I'm not going to do that because I've already added it once. And now, what's this console business, you might be saying? Well, console, down in our bottom left, next to project, you can see console as a window. This is where we can print out information about the game. It's not something the player is ever going to see. This is just purely for us developers. We can see information about the game. So with the console tab clicked, I will click on play, which is up in the top middle of our screen. This is play to execute our game. When our game starts, one of the cars, this one here, has a script on it, and the script is saying, I'm printing to the console. Excellent. Now, hopefully all that makes sense because I have a challenge for you. And that challenge is to simply change the print statement. So change our print statement so it prints out some strange fact about your game object. For example, hello, I have no doors or windows. Who on earth designed me? Someone who's not that amazing with 3D art, probably. So go ahead and change the print statement, click on play, and make sure that it all works. I think I've made one thing I forgot to tell you is that I haven't unclicked play. So make sure you unclick play and then click play again so that your script will work. Make sure you save your script, obviously. So there's a challenge. Pause your video, take that on now. Okay, over into Visual Studio Code. Let's find our debug log. What was the thing I was going to say? Hello, I have no doors or windows. Hello, I have no doors or windows. How silly. I've modified it a little bit. I'm shooting from the hip here. Okay, I'll save that. Back over into Unity. Now we're looking down here in the console. I'm going to click on play, and we should get a new statement. Hello, I have no doors or windows. How silly. Excellent. There we go. So that's the starting process of us creating scripts, of us starting to do coding. That was coding that we've done. If this is your first code ever, fantastic. Very exciting to start that journey. If you've already done a bunch of coding in the past, then this will serve as a mechanism for making sure that Visual Studio Code and Unity are playing nicely together, which for me, they now are. Excellent, good work, and I'll see you in the next lecture.